And there is a long history of ape language and cognition using ASL, including Coco and Washoe and Bowie and various other language studies. But yes, I did switch that in the book for my thought purposes. Yes.
I know that, like humans, chimpanzees can be very violent. Are bonobos the same way? Did you see any of that? Did you see any of that working in your book?
The question, in case people couldn't hear it, was that but chimpanzees are known to be violent, and that humans are the same way. And the question, I believe, is whether bonobos are the same way, and did any of that make it into my book? Bonobos, you could actually, I'm going to start with saying that you could not pay me to be in a room with an unrestrained chimpanzee. Well, I have been in a room with an unrestrained bonobo. Bonobos have very little violence in their culture, and I use that word very carefully, because one of the reasons that that scientists believe that they have such a non-violent culture and nature is that the very tiny portion of the world that they come from, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the food sources are abundant. And so the females never felt in competition to feed their babies. And so, whereas humans have usually male pair bonding, chimpanzees do male-male bonding and go on organized warfare hunts and things, and gorillas have sort of a harem situation. With bonobos, bonobo females prefer females to males, and they, if a male gets ugly or tries to do something wrong to a female bonobo, he's going to be faced with a band of very angry female bonobos who will correct him. And as a result, his DNA is never allowed into the pool. And so you have no male bonobo knows what baby is his, and so you don't end up with the infanticide that happens in chimpanzee society. And in fact, infants have such a high status that holding a baby is an honor, and so you find adult male bonobos babysitting. And actually that was the reason that I think Pam Benicia took to me, was not the dogs, it was when she realized I was a mother. Being a mother gave me instant status in the bonobo world. Yes?
I've read a little bit about bonobos, and there's some opinion among the scientific community that they may be closer to us, related more closely to us than to the regular chimpanzees. Well, for one thing, right, they're like us in the way that, well, they make love face to face, unlike chimpanzees do. So, I just always thought that was interesting. In some ways, they're more like us than the regular chimps.
But the comment was that that bonobos are possibly more closely related to us than chimpanzees, and that they do in fact make love and have sex face to face and clearly enjoy it, and in fact this year they have decoded the bonobo genome. We do know that we already know that they're as closely related to us as the regular chimpanzee, the pan troglodyte. But the genome is being published this year, so we'll see just how close that relationship is. But what I've always found, I only heard about them 4 years ago, but what I have found interesting about bonobos and their culture, and again I use that word very carefully, is that there has been always a segment of society that has said, oh, well, warfare and organized violence and so on is hardwired into us, and here's proof, because chimpanzees do it too. Well, here's another species that's at least as closely related to us who do not do this. The correcting of the males in the case of an attempted rape is the only, I think, actually not ritualized, but the common occurrence of violence among bonobos. And so suddenly we have this other model we used to say, yes, we have these violent traits, and we can't help it, because look at the chimps. Well, now look at the bonobos. Maybe we can help it. Yes?
Aren't the people who are responsible for this environment where the bonobos live interested in somehow controlling the results of all this rampant sex? I mean, do they not want to breed X to Y and Z to B and so on? Is there not a reason to want to manage that, or is it really freeform?
Well, in the jungle, it's entirely up to the bonobos.
Oh, yeah.
In the language studies, they do make sure that there's not inbreeding by, well, doling out vasectomies. But they do. I mean, you know, the bonobos have no boundaries. It's every combination.
So they don't really know necessarily where the baby came from.
Oh, the scientists absolutely know, because they
check it. Yeah.
Well, they check, and they like I said, they carefully control. They carefully control, because it would be, there are so few bonobos in the States that they have to be very careful to keep the gene pool sort of moving and not stagnant. Yes.
In the book, you make passing reference to these language labs sharing their information with groups that are trying to find means of communicating for non-verbal children. And I just was curious as to whether you knew much about that, or if it was just a passing, like, oh, that would be neat.
No, that's actually one of the ways that this research is being used, and it's been immensely helpful in nonverbal children. And you know, I mean, I think it's become common knowledge now that if you start using hand signs with infants, they will start communicating with you about food and what they want long before they have control over their tongue and language. And in some cases, very profoundly delayed people, as nearly adults, can find ways of communicating with the lexigram boards where they can't ever, they're not going to get language in the vocal sense. But so yes, this research has been beneficial to nonverbal people. Very, in some cases, it's unlocked them from aphasia. Yes.
How soon did you, when thinking about the plot of the novel, how soon did you come to the reality TV series part? Was that always there for you?
No, the question was how soon I came to the reality TV plot. I wanted to meet the apes and figure out what they were about, and then my writing process is very organic. I never know what is going to happen on a given day in my writing world. I sit down, and it takes me usually about an hour and a half to get into my creative space, and then I don't know what's going to happen, which is why I hate writing without lines, and I refuse to, because if I do, then my characters are fighting me the whole time, and then I just have to throw out a third of the novel and start over anyway. So that it just sort of lent itself. I don't know when it happened exactly. I don't pretend to entirely understand the creative process. I just kind of depend on it still being there and hoping it will be. Yes.
I wanted you to talk a little bit more about your writing process. And I'm curious, because the apes seem very, very close to your heart and soul. Was that hard to write? Because obviously that's not a happy part of the book that you just read. Was that emotionally hard for you to do that?
That particular section was emotionally hard for me, only in that I knew that these characters were in my head. But there are scenes in this book. Most of the research